Do you know what is the most threatening to the powers that be? Is that we start to connect directly to the Creator. There are no churches that intervenes. Not that we shouldn't ever go to church, and I do believe in going to church. But along with going to church, we also have to have this strong connection to the Creator ourselves, a direct line. If we're confused, if we run into things that boggle us, we can ask directly and receive an accurate answer. We didn't need anything to be written down, to be misinterpreted or told to us. We could just ask the Creator. And there's nothing more that the Creator would want than for His creation to have a relationship, a personal relationship with Him. So how do we do that? How can we talk? I want to talk to the Creator over 10 years ago. And what happened was one day I just decided that everything I've done is futile. I mean, it was good. It was really good. It was good in the human level of success and the material world. But it never satisfied me on a soul, on a deep level. No matter what I had, I was still unfulfilled. And I asked God, the Creator of all that's good, to guide me to come in and take over my life. Just take my life over. I've given myself to the Creator completely, and use me to your good. I had spoken that about 10 years ago. And at that time, I remember just lying there in bed and looking up at the ceiling and just waiting for some miraculous force to take over my body and take over my life and my thoughts, because I had surrendered. And then nothing happened. And that went on for 2 years, and I started to go into meditation and looking for God in these places of New Age meditation and spiritual, mystical things, because that's the only place that I knew to look. And that time when I was waiting on the Creator to take over my life, there was a time that I had lived up in I was like on the 23rd floor, and it was quite up in an apartment building. And when we looked down, there's a tennis court, and my friend had been playing tennis right below, just right directly below and in front of the building, and I could see my friend playing tennis. And no matter how much I yelled and bellowed with the top of my lungs and in the pit of my stomach to create the biggest sound I ever could make, but my friend couldn't hear me. And they continued to play tennis, and I just kept bellowing and bellowing and couldn't hear me. And I had the impression that that was the case when I asked God to come into my life and take over. I couldn't hear God. And during that time that I asked, I was eating stuff like instant soup that you just put hot water in and it creates instant soup. And I was eating instant popcorn, cheese popcorn that you put in the microwave. And I was also drinking very little water. And I was eating a lot of M&Ms, and I also had anger issues, and I had PMS, and I had these afflictions that I wasn't aware were problems. I just thought, I mean, I looked fine on the outside. I looked healthy, and I didn't know that those were not okay. And throughout the year, these 10 years, as I started to clean up my diet, and I'm now lessening my intake of sugar, and I give myself occasional treats of noodles because I just love noodles. And I've skipped rice altogether. And so cleaning up my diet throughout the years, and it didn't just happen, but being a vegetarian and then moving into just organics. Before I was just a vegetarian, but I didn't really know organic. And then being more organically oriented, and being aware of my diet, and being aware of my emotions, the receptors to receive God's messages became more clear. And I started to receive messages. And in the beginning, I really didn't say that, I didn't specify that I wanted to speak with God per se. It was more like, well, I was asking the universe, because I thought the universe was all-knowing and that I could ask the universe for things. And that sort of went on, and I could ask my body's intelligence, because if I wanted to eat food that my body wanted, I needed to ask the right person, and that person happens to be my body. So I would ask my body what it needed for nutrition, etc. And so that was interesting, and that went on for many years, until about 4 years ago, I realized that just because I have the knowledge, and just because I know that I can operate in the spirit realm, doesn't mean I'm doing the will of God. And just because I can get my way, just because I know how to manifest things, and I'm good at doing what I need to do, doesn't mean that I'm doing the will of God. And I went back to the question of, what is the will of God for me? And I wanted to live that life. I wanted to live the life that God had planned. And for then many years later, as I still was living in the question, I still held out 30% from God, and I still had doubts, and I started listening to God's voice, but then I would hold back 30%, and sometimes I would rebel, and sometimes I just wouldn't listen. And every time I didn't listen, because I thought God was a prude, and He didn't want me to have fun, and it was just too conservative, it ended up being that it wasn't about being conservative, rather than being about protecting me and making sure I'm safe. So one example was when I wanted to go to the Rainbow Festival and the Rainbow Gathering, and God said I could go, but just stay 2 days and leave after the second day. My friend stayed longer, so I ended up wanting to stay longer, and I stayed 1 more day. And I had gotten into a motorcycle. I'd fallen off the motorcycle twice that day, because staying that one extra day meant that I had to ride the motorcycle myself down the hill. And it just so happened to be that motorcycle was too heavy for me. And in any way, so that I had fallen twice and hurt my back from that ordeal. And then some other things happened while I was there. So it was just one example of many, many examples of when I didn't listen. And it was never about being prudish. It was never about being too conservative, because I'm finding out that my image of God of being a prude and conservative and obedience is not the case. That God really only wants what's good for us. And He's always looking out for our best interest, because He loves us in totality.